Good afternoon, friends, and thank you very much for coming this afternoon. I have here with me Joint Secretary East Asia, Mr. Gautam Bambawale, and you know why he is here, and that is because we will focus today's briefing on the forthcoming visit of the Prime Minister of Japan. What I will do is make a few opening remarks on the visit of the Prime Minister of Japan. Subsequent to that, the floor will be open for any questions that you may want to ask on that part. After that, as is usual, in case any of you have interest in any other thing, I will be willing to respond to that. Let's begin with the forthcoming visit. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan will be on an official visit from 25th to 27th of January. Prime Minister Abe will be accompanied by Mrs. Aki Abe. They will arrive on the afternoon of the 25th of January. And on the same day, he would call on the President. He will also have meetings in a restricted format and at delegation level with delegations on the same day with the Prime Minister. Subsequent to that, Prime Minister will host a banquet in honor of the visiting dignitary. On 26 January, Prime Minister Abe will be the chief guest at the 64th anniversary of our Republic Day. Earlier on 26, I understand that Prime Minister Abe will have meetings with business leaders in India. And on 27th morning, he is scheduled to depart for Tokyo. This is Prime Minister Abe's second official visit as Prime Minister to India. He had last visited India in 2007 for the India-Japan Annual Summit. Now, India and Japan have a strategic and global partnership which is marked by regular high-level exchanges. You are aware that prior to this visit, we had the landmark visit of the Emperor and Empress of Japan last month. Apart from the system of annual summit meetings that we have with Japan, we also have regular meetings at different levels. For example, we have regular foreign ministers meetings annually. We have regular defense ministers meetings annually. In addition, Japan is the only country with which we have what is called a 2+2 format, that is the Foreign Secretary and the Defense Secretary on the Indian side with their counterparts on the Japanese side meet regularly. All this indicates that we have a multifaceted relationship with Japan, with engagements across a wide spectrum of issues. These include political consultations, issues relating to cooperation in energy, science and technology, infrastructure development, and defense cooperation. Last year, our bilateral trade with Japan was in the vicinity of about $18.5 billion. We foresee vast potential for growth of this trade, given the complementarities that exist between our two countries. Currently, Japan ranks fourth in terms of investments into India, and it is estimated during the period of April 2000 to 2013, approximately $15 billion were invested from Japan into India through FDI and equity flows. This accounts for about 7% of the total investment in India through those mechanisms. Increasingly, we notice that large number of Japanese tourists are availing of the on visa on arrival facility. In fact, the largest nationality of people who are availing of this is from Japan. Japanese companies have been increasing their presence in India, and my understanding is that in 2008 there were 555 sites where Japanese companies were functioning. In 2011, this number increased to a little more than 1,400, and it is expected that by 2015 this number would reach 2,500. Currently, there are about 1,050 Japanese companies who have their representative offices or operations in India. Japan has been graciously extending overseas development assistance through loans and grants, and currently there are 66 projects which are underway in India from using those loans and grants. During the visit, Prime Minister Abe, India and Japan are expected to review all aspects of their wide-ranging bilateral relationships. They will also discuss regional issues and ongoing cooperation in the international arena, including efforts to reform the UN and its Security Council through the G4 framework. It is expected that a joint statement will be issued at the conclusion of the discussions between Prime Minister Abe and our Prime Minister. And we hope that the visit will lead to a deepening and strengthening of our strategic and global partnership. That's by way of background information for you, and now the floor is open if you would like to ask any questions. Yes, Mr. Vijay Naik. Yeah.
Mr. Akbar, the ongoing cooperation in international arena between Japan and India. I just want to know whether there are any plans to discuss this cooperation between India and Japan in Africa in a big way. Because there is a talk, and Mr. Abe came to India some time back. He was in the ICWA when he gave a lecture there. He talked about the close cooperation between India, USA, and Japan.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Let me say that India and Japan have regional dialogues on several parts of the world, and one of those dialogues is on Africa. But that dialogue takes place between the foreign ministries of the two countries, and it takes place at the level of Director General and Joint Secretary. So we have a very intensive discussion between our two governments on the question of possible cooperation in Africa. We also coordinate some of our activities there. We also exchange notes on what each of the countries is doing in Africa. Whether it will come up at the Prime Ministerial level, I can only say that, it depends on the two Prime Ministers. If they wish to discuss this subject, they will do it. And if they don't, then it may be due to the lack of time. But I'm sure that they will brief all of you about what their discussions were about in the media interaction that they do immediately after their meeting. Thank you.
We will put out a media itinerary and opportunities for the media shortly after this briefing. Yes, Ajis?
So yesterday in an interview to FT, Prime Minister Abe said that China and Japan are in a similar situation to UK and Germany before 1914. Do you think that's worrisome for the region, and can India play a role in resolving any tensions?
We're looking at each other because our answer is going to be exactly the same, that we don't want to comment on relations between two other countries, both of which have very strong and positive and expanding relations with India. So we don't want to comment on that.
Yeah, Surya?
The Japanese Prime Minister has indicated he wants to amend the constitution to allow a greater role for defense industry, export and all that. How early could that happen, and what are the prospects for India?
No, I guess you should ask that question of the Japanese government and not the government of India. So I'd point you in that direction. We have no idea how quickly it will happen. It's for the government of Japan, for the people of Japan, and the Japanese society to decide on this question. So I think you should direct your question there.
Yeah, could you direct questions related to our approach on this? Many of the questions are related to what Japan thinks, and that's should be directed, as Gautam says, to the appropriate personnel. Yes, sir, Pankaj.
So any progress?
Deal.
What I can share with you is definitely the two governments are talking with each other, discussing with each other, negotiating with each other on a bilateral India-Japan agreement for cooperation in the peaceful uses of nuclear energy. Since those discussions and negotiations are ongoing, I don't want to go into the details of the negotiations. I think this is something which is of great sensitivity in Japan as well as in India. It's a subject which is of great sensitivity in both Japan and India. So I don't want to, I'll reserve my comments. I don't think I have anything to say about the ongoing negotiations on this subject.
Yes, Doctor. Yeah, after this.
Sir, you said that India and Japan are also cooperating in defense sector. So, seeing the sensitivity of the whole region, can you give me just an insight on what is the scope of defense cooperation between the two countries? Because it's a very tricky thing.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for that question. I think Joint Secretary External Publicity Akbar has already shared with you that we have expanding defense cooperation with Japan. He mentioned that the defense ministers have a regular dialogue. In fact, you know that Defense Minister Onodera of Japan had visited India a few weeks ago. He had excellent discussions with our Raksha Mantri. He had also called on Prime Minister. In December, on December 19 to 22nd, India and Japan held their second bilateral naval exercise, this time off the coast of India. You will recollect that the first exercise had been held in the summer of 2012, and we have, the two Prime Ministers have agreed earlier to have regular joint exercises between our Navy and their Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force. You also know that we have been discussing with Japan the possibility of purchase of an amphibian aircraft called the US-2, and a joint working group had been established in May of 2013 when Prime Minister had visited Japan. That joint working group held its first meeting here in Delhi and is likely to meet again in this year, a little after Prime Minister Abe's visit to India. So we'll see how that progresses. It'll take a bit of time, I'm sure, because defense equipment is always something which is difficult to transfer, and is also the terms and conditions take time to work out. So I think there is a whole amount of defense related cooperation between India and Japan. The very fact that the Japanese Prime Minister, for the first time in the history of independent India, will be the chief guest at our Republic Day celebrations, I think speaks for itself. Thank you.
Yes.
No, there's been a lot of controversy about the Japanese Prime Minister's visit to the resorts, which includes war criminals, and the Foreign Minister has also commented on that. Now, besides China, while this will take us closer to Japan, there are countries other than China in East Asia, where a lot of sensitivities have been aroused by this. Has there been any feelers or issues that cropped up, including during the recent visit of the Korean dignitary, South Korea? Thank
you. Let me say that we are aware of the fact that there are certain tensions amongst nations in Northeast Asia, but India is not involved in these issues. India is expanding its relationships with all these countries in East Asia, including, of course, countries which are members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, so the entire region. And I think this is a mark of the success of India's Look East policy, that we are able to expand our relations with each of these countries as we move ahead into 2014.
Yes, sir.
This is a very basic question, but regarding the nuclear agreement, why India is focusing on to conclude the deal with Japan. What is the expectation from India side to Japanese technology and all?
We are aware that in the area of nuclear technology, there are certain advantages which rest with Japanese industry. For example, in large-scale forgings, for example. And for India's civil nuclear energy program to move ahead, especially where in that segment of the nuclear program, the civil nuclear energy program, where India is soliciting international cooperation, it is very important for Japan to be a partner in such international cooperation. That is why we are looking forward to and negotiating an agreement on the peaceful uses of nuclear energy with Japan.
Yes, Sanchit.
So what are the three priorities for India vis-a-vis Japan, in what areas? And also, we're engaging so heavily with Japan, and certainly that makes China a little worried, and we all also keep saying that, this is because we're trying to, the great balance we're trying to achieve. What would you like to say to that?
Three priorities, the way I would put it, and I think this is also the priority of the government of India, is first of all, we want Japanese technology. Secondly, we want Japanese capital investment into India. And thirdly, we want Japanese modern management practices. So as someone said, it's the economy which is the crucial part of India-Japan cooperation. As far as your second question is concerned, I thought I've already answered it. We have a strong and growing partnership with many countries in the East and Southeast Asian region. And I think that is testimony to the success of India's Look East policy.
Rashmi? Yeah, just a minute.
You did outline the fact that there is intense discussion on regional issues, and keeping in mind that India has also been part of the donors, if I'm not mistaken, thing when it comes to Afghanistan. Is there going to be some sort of a discussion on this, looking forward to what is going to be now happening in Afghanistan? Thank you.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. There is always, when the Prime Ministers of India and Japan meet for their annual summits, there are discussions on regional and global issues, as was mentioned by Akbar at the start. And given the transitions which are taking place in Afghanistan, I would venture to suggest and venture to think that this subject would be discussed by the two Prime Ministers, because it is of great importance to the international community, including India and Japan.
At the Republic Day parade, I'm sure there will be a display of many kinds of weapons, including Agni 5 and other, weapons with the nuclear capabilities. And are you sure Japanese people wouldn't be getting some kind of bad feelings with the Prime Minister at the presence?
No, let me put it this way, that the Republic Day parade of India is a military cum civilian parade. There is a military component to it, but there's also a very important civilian component to it. And so it is not purely a military parade, it is also a civilian parade, or it also shows off the social and cultural aspects of India. The fact is that we have a chief guest for this parade every year over so many decades. And this year we invited Prime Minister Abe to be the chief guest, and we are delighted that he has accepted this invitation at a time which is not, completely convenient to him, because we know that his own internal parliament and diet is in session. But we are delighted that he has been able to accept the invitation extended to him to be the chief guest for our Republic Day celebrations this year in 2014.
Anyone else? Yes, Raji.
Gautam, whether the current Indo-US tensions have impacted the Japan-US-India trilateral, when is the next likely date, and whether there is a move to restore the strategic quadrilateral initiative involving Australia as well?
I can tell you that the last round of the India, Japan, United States trilateral dialogue was held in Tokyo in November of 2013, and as per schedule, it is now to be held, the sixth meeting or the sixth round will be held in Delhi in the middle of 2014. So I think we're on track for that, but I cannot comment on what exact dates it will be held. But I am pretty confident that it will be held more or less as per schedule.
Now you know that we only answer one. Yeah, anyone else? Yes, Parul.
Can you give us any kind of a time frame by when we will sign this civil nuclear agreement with Japan?
Let me say that both sides have been working very hard at it, and both sides would like to do it as quickly as possible. But giving a time frame in diplomatic negotiations is something which is very difficult to do, and therefore I wouldn't like to venture on a time frame by when this agreement will be done.
Well, if there are no further questions on this, are there any questions on anything else? Yes, Maha?
Sir, French warship has apparently rescued 11 Indian members on Shah-e-Hind. Has the French side communicated as to whether all the crew members were okay and not harmed by the pirates, because apparently they were taken hostage by them?
Maha, coordination on anti-piracy matters is handled by the Director General of Shipping, which is the nodal point in India for working this out. I would suggest that you could direct those questions to the Director General of Shipping. Yes, ma'am. Padma. Here.
This is regarding the forthcoming visit of the German President Joachim Gauck from the 4th of February onwards. Are there any details available about his, his itinerary here? And apart from the routine ceremonial, practices and visits, is anything really exciting going?
You'll have to wait to get the exciting news, because right now we are focused on something which Gautam mentioned, and that's the excitement regarding the Republic Day. As I said, all exciting news has a time and place, and we will confirm or say anything on this once we finish this visit. And we've told you on many occasions that we move at a pace which you're not very comfortable with. I do understand that. But that's the pace at which we move, and we will move sequentially and respond to any other visits after this visit is over. So right now we are focused. Yes. Yeah, I can't answer that question because I will confirm a visit by announcing it. If I haven't, then I cannot confirm it. Yes. Yes.
Tamil Nadu fishermen are a little happy simultaneously when India and Sri Lanka are released the fishermen. But the fact is still the problem is continuing. So can you once again confirm the date and what are the procedures has been taken by India and Sri Lanka?
You see, this is a humanitarian issue of fishermen both from India and Sri Lanka having problems. It does impact on their livelihood. And the government of India is obviously concerned on this matter. It is in touch both with the state of Tamil Nadu as well as with Sri Lankan colleagues across the Park Strait. Now the issue was that before the joint working group meets, there was to be a Fishermen's Association meeting. That meeting has not yet taken place because the government of Sri Lanka has requested some time for preparing for that meeting. And we are in touch now with the government of Tamil Nadu for new dates. As you know, these dates were, actually the meeting was to be held on the 20th. That meeting didn't take place. We are now working on fresh dates. Separately, there is a 6-member committee which has been formed between India and Sri Lanka, 3 from each side, where they will try and see issues relating to the 2008 Memorandum of Understanding and how to progress further on that. That's where we are on the diplomatic front on both those issues. I said that the January 20th meeting could not take place. We are now in consultation with the government of Tamil Nadu to work out a fresh date because it is hosted in Tamil Nadu. So once the fresh dates are decided upon, we will certainly share it with you. Yes, Ashok.
But can you share some more details about EM's meeting with Kerry, other than what you have put out?
Including
Achha.
Pardon?
The EM's meeting with John Kerry.
Yeah. Well, you know, we have put out something, but as far as we are concerned, that the India and US have a broad-based relationship which both of us consider as very important. Now, this relationship entails cooperations and consultations on a wide array of subjects through established dialogue mechanisms. But it is also a fact that in the last few weeks, we were faced by a situation that we think should never have happened. And we therefore need to address and resolve the issues that relate to that situation. Now, if you have to try and formulate what was the takeaway during this half an hour long meeting between the External Affairs Minister and Secretary of State Kerry, I would try and summarize it as that there is an understanding of both the importance that is placed on the relationship and the need to resolve matters that have caused us distress and led to stresses in the relationship during the past few weeks. And that in sum is the takeaway from that meeting. Yes, ma'am. One by one. Maria.
Yeah, it's regarding the 2 Italian soldiers arrested almost 2 years ago. There was some report regarding the sanction given by MHA, Minister of Interior Affairs, regarding the application of SUA Act by the police, the Special Police National Investigation Authority. Can you confirm, please?
Maria, I think you are aware that this matter came up during the Supreme Court discussions on Monday. And the Attorney General, who is the highest legal officer in India, did inform the Supreme Court that he requires 14 days to try and resolve issues on this matter and will submit the information on this to the court. It's 4 days since that happened. The Attorney General therefore has another 10 days whereby he has to resolve issues on that. And he will bring the Government of India's views to the court at the conclusion of that period. Yes. Yeah, Ranjana?
So it's on that Kerry Khurshid meeting. There's a line in the thing which said that he raised the issue of trafficking visas issued by the US to Indian nationals. Some clarity on that?
Well, I think it is fairly well known that there have been visas issued to Indian nationals who are related to people who may have been trafficked, and the numbers are available in the public domain. Now, our concern is that in a democracy where there are established avenues for resolving these issues, why does a country require resort to evacuating people from that country to another country? And that's what the External Affairs Minister had raised during his meeting. Yes, Naz?
Can you give some update on resolving this standoff on the border with Pakistan?
Yeah, well, what I can say is that the two foreign offices are in consultation. But I'd also like to clarify that there is no modality that exempts a person alleged to be involved in a criminal activity from facing the full force of Indian law. The spirit of confidence building measures relating to trans-LOC trade and travel is to bring about humanitarian benefits to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And therefore, to us it is surprising that these confidence building measures have been chosen by Pakistan to be held hostage for the sake of persons indulging in drug trafficking. Yes, sir. Yes. No, further on.
Pakistan has asked that the driver has a diplomatic immunity. So what is the India's position?
This is the first time I hear that drivers have diplomatic immunity. But let me tell you again, I just mentioned it, but I can repeat. There is no immunity that exempts a person in that category who is alleged to be involved in a criminal activity, and he will face the full force of Indian law. Yes, Gautam.
Sir, Bangladesh opposition leader Khaleda Zia made a very serious allegation that Indian troops were deployed to contain the communal tension in certain parts of the Bangladesh, which has been reported in section of Indian media too. Now, recently, in the early this week, a group of Indian officials from MEA has visited Dhaka. So whether this communal tension in Bangladesh were discussed or this issue was discussed or referred in any of the dialogue?
I don't have any readout on the meetings, but I think that allegation has been responded to also, and we don't have to add to it because there has been an allegation directed from one quarter to another, and that has been responded by that quarter. Yes, sir.
Sir, Delhi government law minister Somnath Bharati is accused by some foreigners, especially from the Africa and Uganda. How much is serious? Does it looking by the MEA?
I mean, I would not be the right person to get involved in what is happening, and which is a matter of legal discussions right now. I don't know what, if you have a question relating to the diplomatic aspects of this, I'm willing to answer. Yeah, so what's the question then? If you could reformulate, since all of you are interested. You've already asked. Anyone can reformulate it, sure. Just 1 minute. Yeah. You can reformulate it and I'm willing to answer.
Just give us more insight on the meeting that the minister had with the ambassadors of some African countries regarding this issue, please.
Yeah, well, okay. First of all, this was a meeting held by Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. Dinkar Khullar. And you need to understand the background to that, and that is that our relations with Africa are rooted in history, a history of a common opposition to apartheid and colonialism. Please let us not forget that the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, honed his passive resistance tools on African soil, and therefore racism is anathema for us. So what was done at that meeting was to immediately assuage any concerns that there may be that an incident which is now being investigated has any racist overtones, or the government of India in any manner has a view which is not conducive to our relationship. And therefore we had indicated that this was an incident which was condemnable. We had also indicated that this could not be condoned, and we had hoped that this was an aberration and does not reflect our relationship with Africa. Now, what is our relationship with Africa? Our relationship with Africa is one which is held up as a beacon of South-South friendship. Our relationship with Africa is one where we have grown in terms of our linkages in an economic manner from, say, less than $1 billion in 1991 to today, which is more than $70 billion trade that is going on. And we target 2015 as the date when we could exceed 100 billion. Our relationship with Africa, as is being worked through the India-Africa Forum Summit process, indicates that we've provided 1,500 scholarships to African students every year under the ITEC program, which is extremely large. Our relationship with Africa is where we are working with various African states to enhance capacity building, and in that we have committed that we would build 100 institutions in Africa for capacity building at various levels. This is bilateral, national, sub-regional and regional. Our relationship with Africa is that during the last decade, out of approximately 10 billion lines of credit that we have provided, more than 6 billion are addressed towards Africa. Africa to us is a major partner, and what has happened does not in any way reflect our relationship with Africa, and that was the sum and substance of our response to that incident. We've also assured our brothers and sisters from Africa that once the details are available, we will provide them with the details of the facts of the case, and we have also written to the concerned authorities on this, that it is our commitment that we will pursue this matter and provide them the details, because several of them were certainly concerned about it. Supplementary, I mean. Yes. Yeah, yes. Let the microphone come. Sure. I am available to answer.
Any of the Ugandan authorities or civilians have yet contacted the MEA, and the cases, the allegations of drug trafficking and prostitution, they denied it before the MEA.
Sure. I'd like to clarify that in the meeting on Saturday, there was no representative from the Ugandan High Commission, simply because there were no diplomatic officials of the Ugandan High Commission present in Delhi on that day. Subsequently, our colleagues who handle that region are in touch with the Ugandan High Commission and have been told that one of their officers has returned, and we had asked this specific question to them, that whether there have been any interaction between them and any government authorities in India. And we were told that they had not been in touch with any government authorities in India of any hue or color. This was since the incident. So that's where we are. We understand that more senior officials will be returning sometime next week, and we are committed to communicating with them and responding to them if they have any issues on this matter. Yes, Vishal.
So back to the truckers issue. Is there any update on the condition of these truckers in Pakistani detention, and has any consular access been sought? The families of these truckers say that there is no word about their condition, and could you please update us on their present situation?
Vishal, this is a difficult situation that they are facing. We all understand. From whatever feedback that has come to, the conditions are obviously not to the satisfaction of anyone. And the issue of consular access is not a issue here, because consular access is provided if somebody is detained, etc. This is a situation where they are not asked, they are not allowed to return. We are working with the Pakistani Foreign Ministry on this, and all we can do is give hope that diplomacy can find solutions to this. Anjali, you already asked. Okay, last question. Oh, yes, you, after that. Yes.
And you know, these allegations against Delhi's Law Minister Somnath Bharti, has that embarrassed Ministry of External Affairs, our diplomats in Africa? Has this been an embarrassing episode?
Obviously, our response on a holiday and immediate need to communicate our situation does indicate that this is a matter of concern, and we've indicated this, and this was also communicated to us by our African colleagues who met there. There were more than 20 of them, and they were interested in knowing the facts of the situation. They did understand that the government's view was very clear. They appreciated our swift response. They were satisfied with a reiteration of our position on this, which is familiar to them, and that there was no deviation from that. That said, they were also concerned of any tendencies which were being reported in the media, and that's why they were asked for a more detailed report on this based on facts, and we will try to provide them after collating all the facts from the concerned authorities. Yes, sir. Last question. Yes.
Yes, Akbar, I just want to have some more information regarding the next visit of Mr. Khurshid to Africa.
My understanding is that the External Affairs Minister will be traveling to Tunisia, Morocco and Sudan. I will provide you the details well before he starts, and we will send it across to you. I do not have the details right now because the officials concerned are actually the same officials who are in Syria, in Geneva, handling the Geneva 2 conference. But we will provide you that information about the dates of his visit and who he is likely to meet, along with any other information that you would like to know. Thank you very much.